With the royal wedding coming up on Saturday, Queen Elizabeth is very involved in the festivities for her grandson Harry. Her royal subjects and almost everybody else in the whole world will be watching her every move, wondering what she's really like and wishing for an opportunity to actually meet Her Majesty face to face. Well, we have two people right here on the Suncoast who have had that pleasure. Paige Dame met her in Sydney, Australia, and Father Charleston Wilson from the Church of the Redeemer met her on a trip to England. Now, they're both from the Church of the Redeemer because we called to talk to the father and we got Paige. And he said, I've also met the Queen.
What are the chances?
Yes. So how did you meet her?
I met the Queen when I was living in Sydney, Australia, back in 1980, representing a large American bank, and was when she and Prince Philip were making a state visit to Australia in the month of May, and it was announced they were going to do a walkabout in Sydney, coming down Martin Place, which is a very wide, downsloping thoroughfare with broad sidewalks on both sides. And so about an hour and a half before the start time, I walked over from my office to Martin Place, got about halfway up and got a place on the rope line. But of course, I didn't know which side, which royal I would get.
But you were hoping for the Queen.
I was hoping for the Queen. And there were office buildings on both sides, and the windows were open and people leaning out the windows, a great deal of excitement. Waited quite a long time. Had to do that to get the place I got. And then applause started throughout the whole of Martin Place. You could hear it rolling and thousands of people. And this large black Rolls-Royce limousine pulled up at the top of Martin Place with the Royal Standard on top. And they got out, the Queen and Prince Philip. And I was thinking, I want the Queen. And I got the Queen.
Oh.
She came over to my side and started slowly, very measured pace, walking down the sidewalk. She had two plainclothes security people in front of her, two behind her. She was wearing a sort of a light, dusty, powdery blue, a big broad hat, and the thin suede gloves up to her elbows. And she walked very carefully at the same measured pace. Everybody had their hands stuck out, of course. She shook a few at random, and I was thinking, well, I don't know. When she gets close to me, I'll just do my best. And she got close to me, and she looked, and we made eye contact. And I gave her a very broad smile, and she walked over and shook my hand and said, thanks for coming out.
Oh my goodness.
And so,
if you'd had your camera, you could have done a selfie.
that's exactly right, 38 years ago. And she kept on walking, but the cheering from the windows of the office buildings and the throwing of confetti and all the applause, it was really, it was a thrilling moment.
Well, now tell us how you met her, Father Charleston.
Well, I've long admired the Queen, and my mother is an Anglophile, so I sort of inherited it from her. And I have a friend who, she has what they call an ecclesiastical household. It's a fancy word for she's got a lot of clergy around her to take care of not only her needs, but the needs of her various staff. And he was appointed as a chaplain to Her Majesty. And he can invite one person a year to a tea party at Buckingham Palace. And he chose me. And I was delighted. So it was just a year ago, went to Buckingham Palace. So I was invited.
Just a year ago. And so you actually got an invitation to the tea.
Invitation in the mail with a big stamp, Elizabeth II. On it, and from the Lord Chamberlain's office.
Oh my, did you have to follow certain rules at the tea party?
I was told, well, I can't say that I've kept all the rules, but I was told about them. I was told don't take any pictures. I did take one little sneak image of Her Majesty. I was told what to wear. I was told what gate to enter, when to exit, and where to stand. And and unlike when you and I have a party, and we arrive first, right? And all the friends come over and we're waiting. Oh no, not that way with Her Majesty. All the guests arrive first. Then she comes in to God Save the Queen, and we all stand up, and she enters.
Oh, what was she like?
Well, first of all, in my mind, I had this, because I've so admired her. I remember a book that it was the Queen and the King whom she serves, a great book of her faith. And then, so in my mind, I'd really created her as this giant. Well, in fact, I'm short. I'm only 5'6". She's 5'2". She could get in my pocket. I mean, she's just tiny. So the first thought was, she's really small.
Oh.
And then she stood for 3 hours in high heels without ever sitting down.
Wow.
Wow, she's a strong woman.
Very strong. And of course, she had the purse.
Oh,
But she stood the whole time. All of us were seated and had long since exhausted our knees. She never missed a beat.
oh, wow, what an experience. And of course, there's a close tie between Church of Redeemer and the Church of England. And we're going to be hoping that we can all get a glimpse of the Queen at the Great Wedding. Meanwhile, we're going to see fashions fit for a queen from a Suncoast designer.